Good evening. Our Bible reading this evening is from the book of Ruth, chapter 2. This can be found in our church Bible, page 267, and on the screen behind me. Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a man of standing from the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor." Naomi said to her, "Go ahead, my daughter." So she went out, entered a field, and began to glean behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. Just then Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. "The Lord be with you." "The Lord bless you," they answered. Boaz asked the overseer of his harvesters, "Who does that young woman belong to?" The overseer replied, "She is the Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi." She said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters." She came into the field and has remained here from morning till now, except for the short rest in the shelter. So Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting, and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." At this, she bowed down with her face to the ground. She asked him, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" Boaz replied, "I'd been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with the people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." "May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my lord," she said. "You have put me at ease by speaking kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servants." At mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here. Have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar." When she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain. She ate all she wanted and had some left over. As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men, "Let her gather among the sheaves, and don't reprimand her. Even pulled out some stalks for her from the bundles, and leave them for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her." So Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. Then she threshed the barley she had gathered, and it amounted to about an ephah. So she carried it back to town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she had eaten enough. Her mother-in-law asked her, "Where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." Then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one at whose place she had been working. "The name of the man I work with today is Boaz," she said. "The Lord bless him," Naomi said to her mother-in-law. "He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead." She added that that man is our close relative. He is one of our guardian redeemers. Then Ruth the Moabite said, "He even said to me, 'Stay with my workers until they finish harvesting all my grain.'" Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It will be good for you, my daughter, to go with the women who work for him, because in someone else's field you might be harmed." So Ruth stayed close to the women of Boaz to glean until the barley and the wheat harvests were finished, and she lived with her mother-in-law. This is the word of the Lord.
Mia, do please keep Ruth chapter 2 open, and let's pray as we begin. Isaiah 40 reminds us that though the grass withers and the flowers fall, the word of the Lord endures forever. And so, Lord, as we come to your true and enduring word, would you speak once again afresh to us this evening as we open our hearts ready to listen to what you have for us. Would it be for our good and your glory? Amen. One of the things we do every January as a group of church leaders is we go away for 48 hours together, and we just reflect on how things are going, what sort of things we want to think about going forwards. And one of the things we were talking about this time was revisiting some of the teaching series that we've done in the last 10 to 15 years that have had a really significant and sort of formative impact on us as a church. And we thought actually there's a handful of things that we've done which have really served to encourage us and shape us that we want to revisit with you over the next 12 to 18 months. So maybe things like, you may remember some of you doing something called Just Walk Across the Room, a series helping us think about how we share our faith. A series called A Praying Life, based on a book by a guy called Paul Miller, which was just enormously helpful, thinking how we can think about and conceive of our prayer lives, not just as sort of a snatched minute here, but that constant sense of living in the presence of God. A series called Side by Side. How do we walk alongside each other and care for each other? And one of the series that we've done maybe 10 or 12 years ago now was this one, Fruitfulness on the Front Line. We did it on Sundays and in home groups, and we're going to be doing that again. We're obviously kicking it off tonight, so I'm just going to be introducing it for us, and then we're going to be working through what I'm going to introduce to tonight, the 6 M's, taking one at a time each Sunday evening over the next 6-7 weeks, and there'll be some stuff in home groups to do as well. This series, when we first did it, I think really helped us get our heads around what it means to live as followers of Jesus every day, not just on Sundays. When we first looked at it, we looked at this idea of you have 168 hours in a week. Now, depending on averages, you probably sleep for about 56 of those. You may spend about 4 to 6 of those at church or church-related activities, whether that's a service or a midweek team or a group. That leaves you about 106 hours a week. That 106 hours, that is your front line. Actually, there'll be kind of multiple front lines, won't there? For some of you, it's a workplace, but it may also be a family context, a neighborhood or the street where you live, maybe the hobbies or the social groups you're part of. All of these are the front lines where God has put you, where God has a plan for you to be a witness for him. The organisation that wrote this stuff, the London Institute of Contemporary Christianity, says this: your front line is the place where you spend most of your time, where you rub shoulders with people who don't know Jesus. It's the place God has called you, the place of possibility and potential. We may be old or young, healthy or infirm, employed or not, we still have a front line. Often, though, we don't see our front lines in this light. But just imagine what the impact might be on our neighbourhoods, our workplaces, our schools, on the nation, if we could help each other make a difference for Christ in these places. Imagine how God could work through you right where you are. Because sometimes churches are guilty of getting this wrong. Sometimes churches get in this mindset, and church leaders particularly get in this mindset where we say, look, your front line, like that's where you go and you work and you earn money and you give that money to us and we do ministry. A lot of churches end up thinking and acting that way, and actually it's not that at all, is it? We gather together, and that's important, one day a week, and in midweek too, to encourage one another, to pray for each other, to care and to spur each other on. But actually it's so that you go out. Ephesians 4:12 says that the work of your elders, your leaders, is to equip the saints, that's you, for works of ministry. In other words, you do ministry. We equip you to do ministry where God has placed you, where he sent you and where he's called you. And that's really what we're going to be thinking about. And as we intro that, I want us to look tonight at the character of Boaz in the book of Ruth, because I think he's such a good example of what we're talking about. We're going to work through the 6 M's, okay, the 6 M's of being on your front line. And the first one is this. The first thing you can think about on your front line is modeling godly character. And we see that in Boaz, don't we? If you've got Ruth 2 open in front of you, it begins like this. Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a man of standing from the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Do you notice how Boaz is described? He's described as he's a man of standing. And the original word there, it could be translated as sort of a man of strength. It's often used to describe sort of mighty warriors in Israel's history. That's how it's often like military figures, mighty men. But obviously it doesn't quite mean that here, does it? It's not really talking about his physical strength. It's saying, here is a man who is strong in his character. He's a man of standing. He's a man of integrity. He's a man of example. Right where he is, as he runs his business, he walks the walk. He walks out his faith in the place where he has been put. Somebody said that character is how you treat those who can do nothing for you. That's quite a thought-provoking quote, isn't it? Character is how you treat the people who actually can't do anything for you. The US General Norman Schwarzkopf said, leadership is a combination of strategy and character, but if you must be without one, be without the strategy. Character is crucial, isn't it? It's actually the way in which we bring influence to those around us. Character is the manager who restrains their tongue as an act of care for those they employ. Or maybe it's the employee who works diligently and submits to their line manager and doesn't gossip and doesn't badmouth them. Character is going out on that night out with friends or family or the sports team, and you're the one that actually you stay sober. You know where your limit is. You don't cross it. That's the first M, modelling godly character. The second M is this, making good work. Making good work. And Boaz seems to, from all the sense we get from this, don't we? He seems to be a person who makes good work. Have a look down with me at verse 4 and 5. As Boaz arrives from Bethlehem and he greets his harvesters, his workers, he says, "The Lord be with you, and the Lord bless you," they answered. And then Boaz starts talking to the overseer of his harvesters. And as you read through, he's got this sort of foreman. He's got male workers. We're told he's got female workers. He's obviously doing a good job because there's an abundance of the harvest such that he can tear some out and make sure that Ruth has plenty of it. He's got a lunch hour where they all sit down and eat together. He runs his thing well, doesn't he? He's the CEO of a business, but he's doing his thing excellently. He's working hard, he's working well. Martin Luther, the famous Christian leader from a few hundred years ago, said this, and this is about how do you think about your work as a Christian? He said, a Christian shoemaker does his duty, not by carving little crosses into the soles of the shoes, but simply by making excellent shoes. That's what it means to be a Christian who does good work. You do your work in such a way that it honours God. You do excellent work to the very best of your ability. If you're a tradesperson, it's finishing off the job with attention to all the little details to make sure it's done just right. If you're an actor or musician, you turn up to your audition or to your performance ready, rehearsed, good to go. If you're a student, it means you don't just kind of cruise through doing the bare minimum. It means you do your best. You work hard. You give of yourself. We do good work. Where we put the quality of what we do says something about the value, the inherent value we see in it as given by the Lord. Third M, ministering grace and love. This is the third way we can think about our front lines. We minister grace and love. Did you notice the way in which Boaz goes out of his way to minister grace and love towards Ruth in the story? Verse 14, at mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here, have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar." And when she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain. She ate all she wanted and had some left over. And as she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men, "Let her gather among the sheaves, and don't reprimand her. Even pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up. And don't rebuke her." Do you see what he does? He doesn't say, "Look, I need to maximize my profit margin here. I need to maximize all of the possible kind of income and take I could get here." He doesn't, does he? He says, "Look, not only leave the edges, but actually pull out some." Interestingly, he goes beyond what the law required. So the law in Leviticus 19 told farmers that they should leave the edges of their field for the poor. But he doesn't just do that, does he? He's leaving the edges, but he also says to his men, he says, "Pull out some. When you've gathered it, take some and just leave it behind you so that she's got plenty." And she ends up with plenty, doesn't she? She takes home an abundance, which is surprising to Naomi, her mother-in-law. There's a generosity, there's a kindness. There's a wonderful story that a few of us heard at a conference about the dog food manufacturer called Chewy's. It's an American company. It's one of those kind of mail order things. So you can, if you've got a dog, you can do a mail order subscription, and every month a big bag of wholesome dog food turns up on your doorstep. But what happens is, of course, at some point, sadly, the dog dies. The following month, a big bag of food turns up on the doorstep, sort of reinforcing the sadness. And so the customer phones up, and they have to explain why they can no longer take the dog food. And Chewy says to them, "Look, we for health and safety reasons, we can't take the food back. Give it away to anybody you know that could use it." And then 2 weeks later, they send a card to that owner say, "I'm sorry for your loss." They don't have to do that, do they? They're just selling dog food. But they deliberately decide to go the extra mile of grace and kindness and compassion because they understand that pets become part of the family. And so they this little act of grace and compassion. And it's good for business too, isn't it? Because dog owners generally get another dog and they're never going to go anywhere else again, are they? But it is just a kindness. It's the CEO who notices the cleaner and knows their name and maybe something about them. It's the neighbour who does the small acts of kindness, bringing in the bins or taking round the meals for the person that's just come out of hospital. It's the person who's housebound who can still write notes and texts and just to encourage others. I visited someone at home this week who sadly can't get out to us at the moment. And they said one of the things that's been most helpful to them, most encouraging, is every week for the last 2 years, one of our members has written them just a handwritten card with a Bible verse in it. Same member. Every week for 2 years. Just put something in the post. It is a ministry of grace and kindness that speaks volumes, doesn't it? To a world in which that sort of thing sometimes feels like it's kind of lacking. It's going the extra mile. What can you do to care for those around you? Fourth M is moulding your culture. Moulding the culture, that the place where God has put you, are there ways in which you can mould that culture to be a healthier and happier place? You see Boaz doing something of this, don't you, in his instructions to his workers. Look down with me at verse 9. And he says to Ruth, "Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." So he's setting a culture. I've told the men, they don't touch you. In verse 16, he says to her, is it verse 16? No, it isn't. somewhere else. In chapter 1, verse 1, we're told it's the days when the judges ruled. This was a dangerous time for a woman. If you read the book of Judges, this is being a woman, a refugee, an asylum seeker in a foreign place. It was dangerous. She could have gone to another field and been hurt. She could have been attacked. She could have been taken advantage of. But Boaz won't let it happen in his fields. He's moulding the culture. He says to the men, you leave her alone. Not only do you leave her alone, actually he's moulding a culture of generosity, isn't he? As he says, you pull out the stalks and you give more to her. If you've ever watched anyone do that kind of pottery on a wheel, you know where they start with just this lump of clay and they throw it down. But as they carefully kind of apply pressure and shape, this kind of ugly lump can become something beautiful. And there's something beautiful here about the culture which Boaz shapes for those around him, a culture of generosity and a culture of justice, a culture which protects women. They will not lay a hand on you. How do you mould culture where you are? Maybe it's you think about the banter or the jokes in your workplace, what you participate in, or if you're the boss, what you allow. Maybe it's that culture of in sportsmanship. If you play in a team or you coach a team, you say we always shake hands with the opposition. We always give the 3 cheers or whatever it is. We play the game fair and hard, but we always make sure to shake hands afterwards. Maybe if you're a family, you're creating the rhythms in your family of how you use a Sunday, how you do hospitality, how you have that open home and open heart, how you give and share with others. I had a fascinating call this week with an old friend from a previous church. I say a friend, when we left that church, this person was a child. They're now in their mid-20s. And we were having a Zoom call about something. And she said to me, do you know, one of the strange things I remember about you is I think my parents gave you their car. And I said, they did. 20 years ago, they changed their car and they gave us their Ford Focus maroon estate car, which wasn't that old. It was a pretty generous gift and they asked nothing for it and they gave it to us. And what struck me was this child had remembered it for 20 years. The child had seen their parents' generosity, that the culture of the family, and it had stuck with them for all that time. Like it was a big deal to us, but I was amazed here a child had seen and remembered it. It's an encouragement to us, isn't it? Moulding culture. Being a mouthpiece for truth and justice. A mouthpiece for truth and justice. Again, notice it when Boaz instructs the men not to touch her. Verse 22, Naomi has said to Ruth, it'll be good for you to go with the women who work for him, because in someone else's fields you might be harmed. The way in which Boaz runs his operation is to care for the poor and to protect them too. I'm sure many of you have heard of the story of Rosa Parks, who just sat on a bus, refused to give up that seat, which was sort of a domino in the explosion of the civil rights movement in America. And you think, could you really believe that just one person doing one small action in one sort of nowhere place could make that big a difference? Well, it did, didn't it? Could it be the same for us? Maybe not to the same scale, but individuals in our places doing small things actually having a really big impact. Maybe you're the person that is that voice of advocacy. You advocate where you are. Maybe it's in a school or in a church for those with additional needs. Maybe you're the person that speaks up when you see HR practices being abused to kind of move people out the door. Maybe you're the person that speaks up about that. Maybe you're the person that has the courage to speak when actually you see somebody in a workplace behaving in ways that are dishonest or abusive. What might it mean for you to be that mouthpiece of justice where you've been placed? And finally, a messenger of the gospel, the sixth and final messenger of the gospel. Where are the opportunities for you to say something of why it is you do the first five? What is it that motivates you and inspires you? What is it that shapes the way you want to live your life around other people? Well, a messenger of the gospel. You just get the smallest hint of this, don't you, in verse 4. As Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters, "The Lord be with you." "The Lord bless you," they answered. You might say, well, that's just the sort of the normal expected greeting in an ancient Israelite culture, and maybe it was, but nevertheless, Boaz is explicit about it, isn't he? It's explicit. The Lord be with you. The Lord bless you. He is clearly a man who wants those around him to know what's at the centre of his life, what it is that motivates him and inspires him and drives him. He is a man of faith, and his faith shapes all of these six things. Why does he models godly character? Why he makes good work? Why he ministers grace and love? Why he's moulding culture? Why he's a mouthpiece for truth and justice? Why he's a messenger of the gospel. I came across recently the lovely story of Corrie ten Boom, who was famous for protecting Jews during kind of World War II, and the Germans found out what she was doing, and she was sent to the concentration camp at Ravensbrück with her sister, who sadly died. And during that time, she and her sister would continue to try and read their Bibles and have times of prayer together. And one day, they came across the verse somewhere in Thessalonians that says, "Give thanks in all circumstances." And they kind of sat there and looked at each other and said, we're in a concentration camp. We're starving. Conditions are dreadful. What do we give thanks for? And then amazingly, I don't know how you do this. Amazingly, their minds went to the fleas that had infested the mattresses. And they said, well, at least the presence of the fleas means that the concentration guards tend to leave us alone, so we can read our Bibles and sing our hymns and pray together. Isn't that a remarkable way to look at life circumstances? To be able to give thanks in everything. So actually, how can I be a messenger of the gospel in all circumstances? How can I find ways to speak of my faith to those around me? Maybe sharing something of your story, inviting someone to church or a course or an event, offering them a book you found helpful, or maybe even if appropriate, offering to pray with them if you think that might be well received. Maybe it's just parents and grandparents getting out the Bible storybooks and putting on the little songs and spending time doing that with your children and grandchildren. There's a lot more we're going to say as we go through this series. Each week we're going to dive deeper into just one of the M's, and we're going to work through them in turn. And in our midweek small groups too, starting not this week but next week, we're going to think more and more, what does it mean? Like you all have a front line, and it's different for all of us, isn't it? But to think hard about, how do I live for Christ and the place that he has put me? And each week on a Sunday evening, we're going to share a 2-minute video which has been produced by the London Institute of Contemporary Christianity, just to help maybe get those brain cells working. Different stories, different people each week saying how they think about the 6 M's in their own contexts. And so we're going to watch now 2 minutes from a lady called Merrin, who is a minicab driver. Thanks, John.
Merrin works as a minicab driver. For her, driving is a ministry of hospitality, not just transportation. So how does she express the 6 M's of fruitfulness in her day? Her clients may come to her through an app, but Merrin sees each one as God sent. Modelling godly character requires patience with London traffic and self-control with clients who bring their bad day, their pain, anger and stress into her space. She needs peace because some are abusive, threatening even. Sometimes she's afraid and prays to Christ, her protector, whose image is there on the dashboard to remind her. I'm with you. Making good work means keeping the car spotless, driving smoothly and quickly assessing if the passenger wants to be left with their thoughts, their papers, their phone, or if they want to talk. Sometimes ministering grace and love means carrying on talking long after they've arrived, turning off the app so she doesn't get pinged for another ride. Moulding culture means creating a welcoming space, wanting these strangers to feel better when they arrive than when they started. Being a mouthpiece for truth and justice includes tapping in a 1-star evaluation for a rude passenger, so her fellow drivers will know to be wary, even though that might cost her a tip. And as she listens to people's concerns, she's often able to be a messenger of the gospel, to encourage them to pray, or share how Jesus has helped her on her journey, and can help them on theirs. What does living the 6 M's of fruitfulness look like for you?